The money was gone, every last cent. And my sister stood there with that smug little smile, designer bags hanging off her arms like trophies, waiting for me to break. But here's what she didn't know. I had been playing chess while she was playing checkers. And when Dad's voice thundered through that house asking about the $17,670, the look on her face, that was just the beginning of her downfall. I'm Maya, and I learned pretty early that life doesn't hand you anything on a silver platter. Growing up in suburban Michigan, our family looked picture perfect from the outside. Nice house, two-car garage, the works. But behind closed doors, that's where the real story lived. My sister Vanessa was 3 years older than me, and from the moment I could remember, she'd been the golden child. Everything she touched turned to gold in my parents' eyes, while I was just there, the spare, the backup plan, the one who had to work twice as hard for half the recognition. It started when we were kids. Vanessa got straight A's without cracking a book, while I studied until my eyes burned and barely scraped by with B's. She made varsity cheerleading as a freshman, while I spent 2 years on the bench before finally becoming team manager just to feel included. She had boys lining up around the block, and I had exactly one disastrous date to junior prom with Tyler Henderson, who spent the whole night talking about, you guessed it, Vanessa. But here's the thing about being underestimated your whole life. You learn to move in silence. You learn to watch, to wait, to plan. While Vanessa was busy being the star of every show, I was learning how the world actually worked. I got a part-time job at 15 at the local diner, slinging hash browns and coffee to truckers and townies. The work was hard, the hours sucked, but I didn't complain, not once, because every dollar I made went straight into my savings account, the one I'd opened without telling anyone in my family. College was my ticket out. Not just out of my sister's shadow, but out of the whole toxic dynamic that had defined my first 18 years. I wanted to study business at Michigan State, maybe even get into their entrepreneurship program. I had dreams, big ones, and I wasn't about to let anyone crush them. So I saved. God, did I save. Every birthday check from grandma, every holiday tip from the diner's regulars, every single paycheck. For 3 years, I squirreled away money like my life depended on it. Because honestly, it kinda did. Vanessa, meanwhile, coasted through high school and landed at a local community college, which she treated more like a social club than an actual educational institution. She was supposed to transfer to a 4-year school, but that never materialized. Instead, she moved back home after a year, claiming she needed to find herself and explore her options. What she really meant was that she wanted to party, shop, and live rent-free while mom and dad footed the bill for everything. I was 17 when Vanessa moved back home, and the house immediately felt smaller. She took over the bathroom we were supposed to share, leaving her makeup and hair products scattered everywhere like landmines. Her clothes exploded out of her closet and into mine. Her drama became the central focus of every dinner conversation. It was exhausting, but I kept my head down, kept working, kept saving. My account crept past $5,000, then $10,000, then $15,000. Every deposit felt like a tiny victory, a brick in the wall I was building between my future and this suffocating present. The weird thing was, Vanessa knew about my savings. I'd stupidly mentioned it one night during a rare moment when she was actually being decent to me. We'd been watching some trashy reality TV show, and she'd asked what my plans were after graduation. I told her about Michigan State, about my savings, about how I was determined to pay for as much as I could myself so I wouldn't be drowning in student loans at 25. She'd seemed almost impressed, proud even. She'd squeezed my shoulder and said, "That's actually really smart, Maya. I wish I'd done that." I should have known better. I should have seen the wheels turning behind those perfectly lined eyes, but I was naive enough to think that maybe just maybe, my sister actually respected me for once. Fast forward 6 months. It's March of my senior year, and college acceptance letters are rolling in. I got into Michigan State. Full stop, no wait list, just a clean acceptance into the business school. I was over the moon. This was it. This was my moment. I'd done it completely on my own, and nobody could take that away from me. My savings account sat at $17,670, enough to cover my entire first year if I lived frugally and kept my diner job during breaks. I had it all figured out. That's when things started getting weird. Vanessa suddenly became super interested in my life. She wanted to know about my college plans, my saving strategy, how much I had saved up, which bank I used, what my account numbers were. Totally normal sister stuff. Except nothing about it felt normal. It felt predatory. But I was so starved for positive attention from her that I answered most of her questions, holding back just enough information to maintain some boundaries. "You keep all that money in just a regular savings account?" she asked one night while we were both on our laptops in the living room. Mom and Dad had gone to some fundraiser dinner and wouldn't be back until late. I said, yeah, not looking up from the scholarship application I was filling out. "The interest isn't great, but it's safe and I can access it whenever I need to." "You should really invest some of that. Like, you're losing money to inflation just letting it sit there." "I need it liquid for tuition payments. I'm not trying to play the stock market with my education fund." She dropped it, but I could feel her eyes on me for the rest of the night. That was 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks before everything went to hell. The day it happened was a Saturday in early April. One of those perfect spring days where winter finally releases its grip and you can actually believe summer might come again. I'd picked up an extra shift at the diner because Sheila had called in sick, and I wasn't about to turn down time and a half on the weekend. I worked from 6 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon, and by the time I got home, I was dead on my feet. My shoes smelled like grease, my hair smelled like bacon, and all I wanted was a hot shower and a nap. But when I walked through the front door, something felt off. The house was too quiet. Mom and Dad's cars were gone. They'd mentioned something about driving up to Traverse City to look at some property Dad's buddy was selling, but Vanessa's car was in the driveway. Usually if she was home alone, I could hear her music thumping through the walls or the TV blaring some trashy show. But today, nothing. Just eerie silence. "Vanessa?" I called out, dropping my keys in the bowl by the door. Shopping bags. Everywhere. Designer shopping bags from stores I couldn't even afford to window shop at. Nordstrom, Saks, Bloomingdale's, some boutique place I'd never even heard of. The bags covered her bed, overflowed onto the floor, were stacked against her dresser. And in the middle of it all, sitting on her bed like some twisted fairy tale princess, was Vanessa. She wasn't just sitting there, she was posing, like she'd been waiting for me to walk in and discover her little scene. She had on a new outfit, I could tell because the tags were still hanging off the sleeve, complete with shoes that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe combined. Her makeup was flawless, her hair was perfectly curled, and she had this smile, this awful, knowing smile that made my stomach drop. "Hey, sis," she said, her voice sweet as poisoned honey. "Like my new stuff?" I couldn't speak. My brain was trying to process what I was seeing, trying to make it make sense. What is all this?" "Oh, you know," she examined her nails, which were also freshly manicured. "Just a little shopping spree. Girl's gotta treat herself sometimes, right?" "Vanessa, where did you get the money for all this?" Even as the question left my mouth, dread was already creeping up my spine like ice water. That's when her smile got wider, sharper. "Funny story, actually. You know how you're always going on about how responsible you are with money, how you've been saving for years? Well, I figured since you're such a good saver, you wouldn't mind helping out your big sister, especially since you're always saying family should help family." The room tilted. "What did you do?" "I borrowed a little from your account," she said, making air quotes around borrowed. Okay, fine, I borrowed all of it. But come on, Maya. You were just gonna use it for boring stuff like tuition and books. I needed a wardrobe update. My old clothes were so last season. I couldn't breathe. The walls were closing in. You stole from me? You stole my college fund? Don't be so dramatic, Vanessa said, waving her hand dismissively. It's not stealing when we're family. Besides, you'll make it back eventually. You're good at that whole working thing, right? Just pick up more shifts or whatever. 3 years. 3 years of early mornings and late nights. 3 years of saying no to movies and concerts and normal teenager stuff so I could save. 3 years of planning and dreaming and building towards something better. And she'd blown it all in one day on clothes and shoes and God knows what else. Something inside me should have broken in that moment. That's what she was waiting for. I could see it in her eyes. She wanted me to lose it, to scream, to cry, to give her the satisfaction of watching me crumble. She'd probably been rehearsing her responses, ready to tell me I was overreacting, that I was being selfish, that it wasn't that big a deal. She wanted to see me broken, because misery loves company. And Vanessa had been miserable her whole perfect-looking life. But here's what she didn't know. I'd been expecting something like this. Maybe not this exactly, not this level of betrayal, but something. Because I knew my sister. I knew that the more interested she'd gotten in my savings, the more danger I was in. So, 2 weeks ago, when her questions had gotten really specific, I'd done something. Something that, in that moment, felt paranoid, but now felt like the smartest decision I'd ever made. I'd transferred the money, all of it, every single dollar. I'd loved it from my regular savings account, the one Vanessa knew about, the one I'd stupidly mentioned, into a completely new account at a completely different bank, under my name only, with 2-factor authentication and a password that would have taken a supercomputer 1,000 years to crack. The old account? I'd left it open, with exactly $50 in it, just enough to keep it active. So when Vanessa had somehow figured out how to access my account, and I still don't know if she stole my information or tricked a bank employee or what, she'd stolen $50, 50 lousy dollars that I'd basically left there as bait. Everything she was showing off, every bag, every shoe, every piece of clothing, she'd put it all on credit cards. Multiple credit cards that she'd somehow gotten approved for, probably by lying about her income or stealing mom and dad's information. But I didn't tell her any of this. Not yet. Because I realized something in that moment. Standing in her doorway, looking at her smug face, this was an opportunity. A chance to see just how far she'd go. A chance to give her exactly enough rope to hang herself with. So, instead of breaking down, instead of giving her what she wanted, I smiled. Not a big smile, just a small, knowing smirk that didn't reach my eyes. Okay, I said simply. Vanessa's expression faltered. Just for a second, but I saw it. Okay, that's it? You're not gonna freak out? Nope. I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms. You got me, Ness. Fair and square. Hope you enjoy your new stuff. What? She actually looked confused now, like I'd gone off script from the confrontation she'd been planning. Aren't you mad? Oh, I'm furious, I said, keeping my voice level. But what's done is done, right? You spent the money. It's not like you can return any of that stuff now that you've probably ripped the tags off and worn half of it. So I guess I'll just have to figure something else out for college. This was clearly not the reaction she'd expected. She stood up from her bed, bags crinkling around her. Maya, come on, you can at least yell at me or something. This silent treatment thing is weird. Why would I give you the satisfaction? I pushed off from the doorframe. You know what, Vanessa? You did me a favor. Now I know exactly who you are. And that's worth way more than any amount of money. I turned and walked to my room, closed the door, and waited. I could hear her in the hallway, probably trying to figure out what had just happened. She'd wanted an explosion and gotten a fizzle. She'd wanted to destroy me, and instead I just absorbed it, accepted it. Or at least that's what I wanted her to think. The truth was, my heart was hammering so hard I thought it might break through my ribcage. My hands were shaking, adrenaline was flooding my system like I'd just run a marathon. But I couldn't let her see that. Couldn't let her win. So I sat on my bed, pulled out my phone, and checked my real bank account, the one she didn't know about. $17,670. Every penny right where I'd left it. I allowed myself exactly 5 minutes to sit there in relieved silence. Then I got to work. First, I called the bank where my old account was. "Hi, I need to report potential fraud on my account," I told the customer service rep. I gave her all the details, the suspicious activity, the fact that I hadn't authorized any large withdrawals, the whole 9 yards. She put a freeze on the account and opened an investigation. Would anything come of it? Maybe not. But it was a paper trail, and paper trails matter. Next, I started documenting everything. I took pictures of Vanessa's room through the crack in her door when she finally left to go preen in the bathroom. All those shopping bags with the receipts still inside, documented. The credit card statements she'd stupidly left on her desk, documented. Every single piece of evidence that she'd gone on a massive spending spree that she couldn't possibly afford with her part-time gig at the mall kiosk selling phone cases, documented and backed up to the cloud. Then I waited, because I knew something Vanessa didn't. Dad had asked me 2 weeks ago to hold on to some money for him. He'd been planning to pay for my entire first year at Michigan State as a graduation surprise. He told me this in confidence, made me swear not to tell Mom or Vanessa because he wanted it to be special. He'd liquidated some stocks and had the check made out to cash for exactly $17,670, the amount I'd told him I still needed after my savings. He was planning to give it to me at my graduation party. But here's the thing. He'd asked me to hold it for safekeeping because he didn't trust our house safe. Too many people knew the combination, he said. So I deposited it into my new secret account temporarily, planning to give it back to him when he was ready to make the payment to the university. Which meant that in Dad's mind, he'd given me money for college, and as far as he knew, that money should still exist somewhere, ready to pay my tuition. Vanessa had no idea about any of this. She thought she'd stolen my hard-earned savings, but what she'd actually done was set herself up for something so much worse. I didn't have to wait long. 2 days later, Monday afternoon, I heard Dad's truck pull into the driveway earlier than usual. He usually worked until 6, but it was barely 3 o'clock. Then I heard his footsteps, heavy and fast on the stairs. Then I heard his voice. "Vanessa Christine Morrison, get down here right now." Oh man, the full name. I'd only heard Dad use someone's full name maybe 3 times in my entire life, and each time it had preceded nuclear-level consequences. I crept to my door and opened it just a crack. Vanessa emerged from her room looking annoyed, like she'd been interrupted from something important. "What, Dad? I'm busy." "Where is the money?" His voice literally shook the windows. I never heard him yell like that, ever. Dad was the calm one, the rational one, the one who talked through problems instead of shouting about them. But right now, he looked like he was about to blow a gasket. "What money?" Vanessa tried to play innocent, but her voice wavered. "The $17,670 I gave Maya for her college fees? Where is it?" That's when I watched the color drain from Vanessa's face. It was almost beautiful in a horrible way, like watching someone realize they'd just stepped off a cliff and gravity was about to do its thing. I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered. "Don't lie to me." Dad's face was purple now. "The university called me today, said they never received the deposit for Maya's enrollment. So I called Maya's bank to see what happened. You know what they told me? Someone cleaned out her account on Saturday, took almost every cent. And you know what else? The bank has security footage of you at the ATM, using a card that shouldn't have been in your possession, withdrawing the maximum daily limit multiple times." Oh, this was even better than I'd hoped. I hadn't known about the security footage. Vanessa had actually gone to ATMs with cameras. She was even dumber than I thought. Dad, I can explain, Vanessa started, but he cut her off. Explain? Explain? You stole your sister's college fund, money that I gave her, money that was supposed to secure her future, and you stole it. For what? Shopping? His voice cracked on that last word. Get in the car, now. We're going to every single store you went to, and you're returning everything. Every single thing. But Dad, I can't. I already wore some of it, and some of the tags are. I don't care if you have to eat the cost. You're returning what you can, and whatever you can't return, you're selling online for whatever you can get. And then you're paying back every penny with interest if it takes you the next 10 years. That's when Vanessa made her biggest mistake. She looked at him with those eyes that had gotten her out of trouble her whole life, that pouty expression that usually made Dad melt, and said, "Come on, Daddy. Maya doesn't even need that money. She's so responsible. She'll just save up more. She's good at that. And I really needed..." The slap didn't come from Dad. It came from Mom, who'd apparently come home and been standing at the bottom of the stairs listening to the whole thing. The sound echoed through the house like a gunshot. "How dare you?" Mom said, and there were actual tears streaming down her face. "How dare you steal from your sister and then try to justify it? I have made excuses for you your entire life, Vanessa. Every time you screwed up, every time you hurt someone, every time you chose the easy path over the right one, I made excuses. But this? There is no excuse for this." Vanessa was crying now, holding her cheek, and for a second, just a second, I almost felt bad for her. Almost. Then I remembered every time she'd humiliated me, every time she'd stolen something from me, every time she'd made me feel small and worthless and invisible. And I remembered that this wasn't just about money. This was about her thinking she could take whatever she wanted from me because I didn't matter, because I was just Maya, the boring one, the responsible one, the one who'd always be there to clean up her messes. Not this time. I stepped out of my room. All three of them turned to look at me. Dad looked devastated. Mom looked heartbroken. Vanessa looked like her whole world was caving in. And me? I'm not proud of this, but I'm not ashamed either. I smiled. That same small, knowing smile from Saturday. "Dad," I said quietly, "I need to tell you something." His expression shifted to concern. "What is it, honey?" 2 weeks ago, I transferred all my money to a new account. The one Vanessa stole from only had $50 in it. Your $17,670 is safe. It's in my other account, ready to pay the university whenever you want. The silence that followed was so thick you could have cut it with a knife. Dad's face went through about 17 different emotions in 3 seconds. Mom's mouth literally fell open, and Vanessa looked like she'd been hit by a truck. You mean I didn't actually..." Vanessa couldn't even finish the sentence. "Nope," I said cheerfully. "You stole $50 and put about $17,000 on credit cards that you apparently got approved for by committing identity theft or fraud or both. So not only did you not actually steal my college fund, you're now in massive debt that you have absolutely no way to pay off. And since you probably used Mom or Dad's information to get those cards, yeah, that's several kinds of illegal." Dad turned to look at Vanessa with an expression I'd never seen before. It wasn't anger anymore. It was disappointment so profound, it seemed to age him 10 years in that moment. "Tell me you didn't use our information to open credit cards?" Vanessa's silence was answer enough. "Jesus Christ, Vanessa," Dad said, and his voice was barely a whisper now. "You committed fraud, identity theft. Do you understand what you've done? You could go to jail for this." "I didn't think..." Vanessa started. "No, you didn't think," Mom interrupted, her voice sharp as broken glass. "You never think. You just take and take and take, and you never consider the consequences for anyone else. Well, congratulations, sweetheart. This time, the consequences are yours alone." "But you'll fix it, right?" Vanessa looked between them desperately. "You'll help me? You always help me." Dad shook his head slowly. "No. Not this time. You're going to fix this yourself. You're going to work with those credit card companies, set up payment plans, and you're going to pay back every cent. And if they decide to press charges, we're not going to stop them. You need to learn that actions have consequences. And Vanessa, Mom added, you have until the end of the month to find somewhere else to live. You're not staying under this roof while you treat your sister like an ATM and us like your personal safety net. Watching Vanessa's face crumble wasn't as satisfying as I'd thought it would be. Don't get me wrong, it felt good to see her finally face consequences for once in her privileged life. But there was also this hollow ache in my chest because this was my sister. My awful, selfish, destructive sister, but still my sister. And some tiny part of me had always hoped that maybe one day she'd change. That maybe one day we could actually be real sisters instead of whatever toxic dynamic we'd been acting out for 18 years. But that day clearly wasn't today. Maybe it would never come. And that was sad in a way I hadn't expected.
Vanessa ran upstairs, probably to her room to cry and rage and trash things. Mom and Dad stood in the hallway, looking shell-shocked, like they couldn't quite believe what had just happened in their perfect suburban house with their perfect suburban family. And me? I went back to my room, sat down at my desk, and pulled up my college portal. I had housing to arrange and class schedules to plan. I had a future to build. That night, after things had calmed down somewhat and the house had fallen into an uneasy silence, Dad knocked on my door. I was already in my pajamas, trying to focus on a calc problem set that was due the next day. "Come in," I called. He entered slowly, like he wasn't sure he was welcome. "Hey, kiddo, got a minute?" "Always." I closed my textbook. He sat on the edge of my bed, and for a long moment, he just looked at his hands. "I'm sorry," he finally said. "For what?" "For not protecting you better. From your sister. From all of this. I knew Vanessa could be difficult, but I didn't realize how bad it had gotten. And I definitely didn't think she was capable of something like this." He looked up at me, and his eyes were red-rimmed. "You shouldn't have had to protect yourself. That should have been our job." Something in my chest loosened. I hadn't realized how much I needed to hear that. "It's okay, Dad. It's not okay. None of this is okay." He ran his hand through his graying hair. "But I'm proud of you for being smart enough to see this coming, for protecting yourself, for being the kind of person who works hard and saves and plans for the future. Your mother and I, we've been so focused on managing Vanessa's drama that I think we forgot to tell you how incredible you are." Now it was my turn to have tears in my eyes. "Thanks, Dad. I meant what I said about the money, by the way. That's your college fund, free and clear, and we'll figure out years 2 through 4 as well. You're not going to drown in student loans because your sister can't control herself." "I know," I smiled at him. "And Dad, for what it's worth, I think you handled things exactly right today. Vanessa needs to face consequences for once." He nodded, but he looked older, tired. "Yeah, tough love, right? That's what the therapist we're going to start seeing says. Tough love." He stood up, paused at the door. "Get some sleep, Maya. You've had a hell of a day." After he left, I lay in my bed staring at the ceiling, my mind racing too fast for sleep. I kept replaying the scene. Vanessa's face when she realized she'd played herself, Mom's slap, Dad's disappointment, and my own small victory that felt simultaneously huge and hollow. This was supposed to be my moment of triumph. The bad guy got what came to her. Justice was served. But why did I feel so empty? Maybe because deep down, I'd wanted a different ending. I'd wanted Vanessa to somehow realize what she'd done and apologize. Really apologize. Not the fake, sorry you're mad at me version she usually gave. I'd wanted her to understand that I was a person with feelings and dreams and a future that mattered just as much as hers. I'd wanted, despite everything, for her to be my sister. But that wasn't the story we got. Instead, I got revenge, and she got consequences. And somewhere in the middle of all that, our family broke apart. Through the thin wall that separated our rooms, I could hear Vanessa crying.
Not the dramatic, attention-seeking crying she usually did. This was different. Quieter. More desperate. The sound of someone finally realizing they'd burned down every bridge and now stood alone on an island of their own making. Part of me, the part that had been hurt and dismissed and stolen from, felt like she deserved every tear. But another part of me, the part that remembered being 7 years old and thinking my big sister hung the moon, ached for what we'd lost. Or maybe for what we'd never really had in the first place. I rolled over, pulled my blanket up to my chin, and closed my eyes. Tomorrow, I'd wake up and continue building my future. Tomorrow, I'd take another step toward Michigan State and everything that waited for me there. Tomorrow, I'd keep moving forward because that's what I did. That's what I'd always done. But tonight I let myself feel sad about the sister I'd never have and the family that would never quite be whole again. Because that was the real cost of this whole mess. Not the money, not the drama, not even the betrayal. The real cost was knowing that some breaks can't be fixed, some hurts can't be healed, and some people will never be who you need them to be, no matter how much you wish they would. And if you think that was the end of this story, you're dead wrong. Because what happened next, that's when things got really interesting. That's when I learned that karma doesn't just swing once. It keeps going, building momentum, until everyone involved gets exactly what they deserve. And Vanessa's reckoning, it had only just begun.